Hello dear, welcome once again to English Needs channel. In this channel, I have already uploaded two parts of Model Question Paper 2023. Those two videos which I have already uploaded were already lengthy and I wanted to cover one more example along with this. That is the reason I did not cover this that time. So now I am going to cover this and another example along with this. Now let us see this. This is the graphical representation they have given. This graph represents data regarding 10th standard students' preference of subjects. Now these are the different subjects they have given: English, Science, Kannada, Maths, Hindi and Physical Education. Among these, now we see that Kannada has a highest preference while English has the lowest preference. In between, others are there. So now we have to write a report on this topic in about 120 words. That is roughly 2/3 of a page, or I advise you to go for at least one complete page. Now let me tell you the way it is written. First you have to give the heading. First write down report on. What is it? It is a report. Report on. Now when you write the heading, it should be very short but meaningful. Now what is this about? This is about the preference of subjects. So write down only preference of subjects. Or you can also write subject preference not more than this. It should be only this much, either this or this. Okay. Now the next step is to write little the introduction. Now here you write whatever they have given, same wordings in a little different way. You have to write introduction. After the introduction, you have to write the highlights of the data. Next is highlights. The maximum and the minimum. This constitute the highlights, or what is very important when you glance at this graph, that becomes your highlight. Then next you have to write the interpretation of the data. Interpretation. Interpretation of the data. After this you have to write. Now what is this interpretation? Now whatever you see here, the figure, this you are going to change into words, that is in the form of sentences. Very simple to say here. Say English is preferred by, say this is 60, this is 55 and 56, you can say 57. 56% of the students prefer English. That means this is the least. Now when you come to the highest, this is about 92. 92% of the students of 10th standard prefer Kannada. That means their first preference is Kannada, second preference is physical education at 83%, and third preference is probably Hindi, and then science, and the least is English. This way you have to write the interpretation, taking every aspect of it, that is all the percentage for all these subjects you have to write. This is the interpretation. Then comes the analysis. This part is also very important. What is this? Analysis. Analysis contains at least three parts. A subpart. You don't need to write those words, just keep it in mind. That is the cause or the reason for this. So that is, why is Kannada preferred more and why is English preferred less? Okay, this you have to analyze why it is so. And the next point is the present status. Now in this case it is not quite applicable, but in another example it may be very important, the present status. And the next one is the remedial measures. That means now this is a problem, isn't so? Now Kannada is preferred by so many students while English is preferred by very few people. Why? Now you have to analyze that and you have to suggest some remedial measures for this. First we have to give the reason for this problem. Why is the preference for English language is very less? Maybe that it is the foreign language because it is totally different from our language. Second is that the exposure to this language is very less. That means we do not have the environment for English speaking. The third one is the way it is taught and learnt in the classroom. So classroom teaching may not be good. Experts may not have been appointed. In the primary level, we need experts to teach this. But in many schools, especially the government schools, we don't find good teachers for this in the primary schools. That is the reason the language learning becomes difficult, and when you find something difficult, you don't prefer it. Very simple it is. You have to write all these things making paragraphs, leaving one line each between the paragraphs so that it comes to one page. Now I will give you the complete text of this, how it is written. Just go through that, you will be thorough with this. Okay. So let me give you the text of this report. This is very simple one. It is meant for average students. Report on subject preference by students. A survey was conducted to collect the data on the preference of subjects. The respondents were 10th standard students. The next paragraph is about the highlights of the data. It is clear from the data that the most preferred subject for 10th standard students is Kannada and the least preferred subject is English. Now, the interpretation of the data. Nearly 95% of the students prefer Kannada. It is their favorite subject. The next preference is given to physical education and its preference is 85%. It is followed by mathematics, which is the favorite of 83% students. Hindi is preferred by 70% of the students and the least preferred subject is English at 57%. Now the analysis of the data. As Kannada is the mother tongue of most of the students, it is natural that they find it easy. Moreover, it has stories and poems that entertain the students. Therefore, Kannada is the most preferred subject. Almost every student likes to play. The preference should have been 100%. It is little less because it has to be studied as a subject that makes it burdensome. English is the least preferred subject because it is a foreign language. It is difficult to learn and the exposure is very less. Moreover, it is not useful in day-to-day life. Now, this is the second example I have taken up. This data represents the number of branches of SBI, State Bank of India, and the corresponding number of employees over the years. That is from 1960 to 2000. Every 10 years, the data is updated. Now, this is called a legend. That is, the barbs with this stripe, that is this one, these number of branches in 1000. That means this is not 10 here, it is 10,000, 20,000, like that. When you consider this, when you consider this, that is the second one, white one, number of employees in lakhs. So that means when you consider this, this is 25 lakh employees. That means those who are working there. Now we have to write a report in about 120 words by interpreting this data. As I have already told you the steps what you have to write in the first example, now I am going little fast and I will explain you the data here. So first you will write the heading, staff and branches of SBI. As far as the introduction is concerned, the State Bank of India, owned by the Government of India, has several branches all over India and several people are employed in this organization. So the present data shows the growth or the decline of the number of branches and number of people working there, that is employees, over the years from 1960 to 2000. This is our introduction. Next is our highlight. Highlight is that there is a gradual increase in the number of branches from 1960 to 1990, whereas there is a stagnation in the next 10 years, that is 2000. From 1990 to 2000, there is no difference. And very important thing is, the number of employees is increasing up to 1980, but from 1980 to 2000, in this 20 years, there is a gradual decline or it is reduced in these years. This is our highlight. Now we have to write why is it so. Now, next is the interpretation of the data. For interpretation of the data, you have to write down each one of them, taking one by one. First, we will start from 1960. In the year 1960, the number of branches was 20,000 and the number of employees was 25 lakhs. In the year 1970, there is an increase in the number of branches, that is, it is 30,000, and the number of employees also increased to 32 lakh employees. And in 1980, again there is an uptrend. This also increased to 40,000 branches and number of employees went up to 50 lakhs. And in the next decade, that is 1990, we see that there is an increase in the number of branches. It has reached 50,000. But there is a decline in the number of people employed. Employees number has come down here. It has come up to say 38 lakh employees. And in the next decade, that is 2000, the number of branches remained same at 50,000 branches, whereas there is a decline in this number, that is number of employees is just around 32 lakhs. The numbers what we have given is the interpretation of the data. Now let us come to the analysis. There is a gradual increase in the number of branches is due to the increase in the population. Very simple. More the people, more the branches. And number of employees also went up because as the number of branches increase, the manpower also has to be increased. Therefore, it is going parallelly, increasing both. But at this point in this decade 90 to 2000, there is a stagnation. That means like this there is no linear increase. Maybe it is because it has already reached the saturation point. That means no more branches required. That's why number of branches remained at 50,000. But there is a decline in the number here. This is because of the introduction of computers into the SBI branches. A computer can do work of several people at a time. Therefore, the number of employees required for handling all this work was reduced because of the computer. During these years, the bank asked its employees to take voluntary retirement. Many of them took voluntary retirement, and at the same time the recruitment was also held up. They did not recruit more number of employees because it was not necessary for them. Therefore, there is a decline in the number of employees, though there is increase in the number of branches. That means it is only because of the introduction of computers. Now we can think this as both a boon and a bane. That is, it is a boon or a curse. It is a curse to the people of India because the opportunity for serving in the banks is reduced because of the technology. Many aspirants do not get the job in SBI now after this. So this is a curse for the people. But for the government of India, it is good because now it can run the whole establishment paying less salary. That means the burden on the exchequer is less. So it is boon for the institution, that is SBI. So this is the report on this data. Now I will give all these things in a text form. You can just listen to it or you can read it. Okay? Come, let me give you the text form.